I'd like to direct you to a tweet from my next guest. Before we go to her, check this one out. This is from Arizona GOP Chairwoman Kelli Ward. She's been very, very vocal about all this election fraud that's been going on. Isn't it interesting that attorneys, judges, and elected officials don't seem to want to do everything possible to ease the public's mind regarding potential injustice? This is a nonpartisan issue. This should be a bipartisan issue. Democrats, Republicans, independents, libertarians, Tea Party, Green Party, whatever party you are affiliated with, you should be outraged hearing and seeing this evidence and the hundreds of affidavits signed by real Americans in what they witnessed, voter and election fraud. Let's welcome to the show Kelli Ward so we can talk a little bit more about this. Kelli, you've been very vocal. The president's even been retweeting your tweets this week, I see. Welcome back to the show. Where do we stand in Arizona right now?
Hey, Dan, we are fighting the fight. It's great to be with you, and thank you for pointing this out, because a lot of people, if they're watching mainstream news, they are not hearing the truth. I thought the press conference today with Rudy Giuliani, with Sidney Powell, and the entire team, Jenna Ellis, they all did an amazing job pointing out what is going on at every level. It isn't just machines. It isn't just thugs at polls. It isn't just preventing Republicans from seeing what's going on. It's the whole kit and caboodle. And this is our time to save our republic. I won't stop, and I know you won't either.
You got it. I feel that, not to start preaching and get all spiritual on folks, as I know I think a lot of our viewers are, and some may not be, but I really think this is a time for a lot of us to step up, put your neck on the line, risk something, kind of like the two poll canvassers in Michigan, right, that were threatened. We're going to go ahead and certify the vote because they were threatened and called out and doxxed by these radical, crazy left-wingers. And then, by golly, they slept on it. They got the gumption up, and they said, you know what, now we're going to sign affidavits that we were threatened and bullied to certify this fraudulent vote when they had 71% of irregularities voting in their county. So it's right, Kelli. We've got to tell people out there, stand up, make the call, especially if you saw something. We put that out all last week. Right. And isn't it very eye-opening that we keep seeing these affidavits from regular folks every day coming forward? They're getting up the nerve to say, here's what I saw, and it was wrong.
Right. We have them delivered to our office on a daily basis. Affidavits signed by a notary, signed by a citizen of what they've seen. We, as the Republican Party of Arizona, have a lawsuit. We're asking a judge to please uphold Arizona state statute and require Maricopa County to count ballots based on precinct, to do the audit of the hand count audit. Instead, they've done it by voting center. We've only looked at, between same-day votes and early votes, about 8,000 of those ballots, and over 2 million in Maricopa County were cast. That is atrocious. And this judge should make sure that we can ensure election integrity here. And Democrats should be joining in that call, but they actually joined in the opposition to do away with this lawsuit. What does that tell you? They want every ballot they can scrounge up. They don't care where it came from. They don't care if it came legally. They don't care as long as it was for their guy. We on the Republican side want every legal ballot to be cast and every ballot that was cast illegally to be cast out.
What's the problem in Arizona with them wanting to do a full audit? I don't understand, like in Georgia. I mean, everybody should want this. Secretary of State, right, your county registrar office, your governors, they should all want to see a full audit. We've got to match up the signatures to the ballot and make sure it's legal and that they were living in your state long enough. I've heard, and maybe you can expound on this, in Nevada and Arizona, it appears you had a lot of folks that cast ballots that might be Californians and didn't live in those states at all or long enough. I know in Nevada, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, do you have to live in Arizona 30 days before you can actually legally register to vote?
Yes, we have a residency requirement as well, and we are investigating people who voted in our state inappropriately and potentially voted in more than one state. We're finding people that have passed away that have voted somehow. Also, I found out yesterday, I was at the logic and accuracy test for Maricopa County yesterday. I found out that only 1,400 ballots of these 1.9 million plus that were cast early, 1,400 were excluded because there was no signature and they couldn't match it up, and 599 didn't have matching signatures. So 1,999 ballots out of 1.9 million were all that was thrown out of the Arizona election because of signature, because of verification of identity. That, to me, is impossible.
Yeah, but they
it's
didn't.
It's a 0.1% throwout rate.
Right. You haven't actually checked and audited all 1.9 mil.
No, and Republican auditors or observers, not auditors, observers were prevented from meaningfully observing in our polls. We have video of the Republican observer standing where she was allowed to stand. She wasn't in a cage like Rudy described, but she was in an area where she was allowed to be, using binoculars to see a screen 20 feet away from her as they were doing signature verification. And most of those screens had the back of the monitor towards her, not the part of the monitor that had the information on it. It's ridiculous.
Okay, so
it's ridiculous.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me get this straight. So we have been scared, you-know-whatless, for the last 8 months about COVID. Democrats and the media have told us to stay in. We couldn't vote. We had to do the mail-in ballot thing. 2-3 days right before the election, folks might forget this, but I'll remind you, the CDC put on the website, remember this one, Kelly, that you could go vote in person if you had to. Just let them know that you had COVID. Even if you had it and you were on quarantine, you could still go. You may not know this, folks. The CDC reversed it last second, 48 hours before the election. So we could have all voted in person. Now we've asked to observe. They don't let our observers observe close enough because they're using the COVID restrictions as the reason in Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, because we got to stay back. But we all see video of other poll workers walking past each other, sitting next to one another. But a GOP poll watcher has to be 20 feet away in another room behind plexiglass to view a ballot they can't even view.
Right.
Do we all see what's going on here, folks?
Yep. It's well, we are here to stop the steal, right, Dan? We are here to stop the steal. I hope people will look at my video from today on Dominion at the Republican Party page, AZGOP. Go look for it. It will scare you. It will terrify you, and it will wake you up if you aren't already.
Some days I want to jump in a hole and cry about all this, but that's not what we can do right now. This is the moment that we all, as conservatives, must stand up. Whether you love, hate, or indifferent about this president, you should be standing up right now for democracy and for our republic and for a free and fair legal election. Kelli Ward, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your insight, your candor, and your honesty. Keep the fight up in Arizona, okay?
Thanks, Dan. I will. We were made for a moment such as this. We were.
Thank you, Kelli. When we return, has Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer finally overstepped her authority to the point of no return? We're going to discuss this now. Why? Because GOP leaders, well, guess what they're doing? They're mounting an impeachment. We'll have more on that when we return.